Hey guys, hope all is well. So I have something new today. I've done live streams with our friend Mark Pellegrini, who we have here, and Timothy Lim in the past. But today I have decided I want to try and start doing creator interviews and have them pre-recorded. And I thought, what better way to start this off than by inviting Mark Pellegrini on. A lot of you know him. For those of you who don't, I will turn it over to Mark right now. Mark, can you just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and the Kamen America books and your other IPs, Black Ops, those sorts of things.
Sure. Well, my name is Mark Pellegrini, everybody. I'm a writer, and I write novels, short stories, and comic books, which is the topic of this video. I work primarily with artist Timothy Lim on our comics. We publish through Iconic Comics. The book we have out on Kickstarter for pre-order right now is Kamen America 3. It's the third volume in the Kamen America series, which has been doing rather well. We've been getting a lot of good feedback on it. Kamen America stars Carly Vanders, who is a fashion designer turned henshin hero of the Super Sentai variety, of the Tokusatsu variety, albeit with obviously an American tinge to it. The first two volumes were about her finding her identity as a hero, making new friends, making new enemies, and the third volume is continuing that as the enemies that she's made in the first two volumes conspire, and it comes to a head in the penultimate chapter of this opening saga. We're very happy with it. The book is already completed, and it's basically already printed. So that's why we call it pre-orders. So if you go on Kickstarter, you're pre-ordering a book that's already ready to go, and as soon as the Kickstarter ends, we start fulfillment and we ship. We're putting it down for April fulfillment, but we hope to have it in people's hands sooner. That really just depends on the United States Postal Service and if this nationwide posting delay, mailing delay, and shipping delay finally clears up. We've got our fingers crossed on that, but if you order it today, you'll get it in April. Some of the other IPs that Tim and I work on, our other big one is Black Ops. That was a success that we had initially with Antarctic Press, and they're the ones who re-release all of our books in retail editions in comic shops. Black Ops is the story of USAGI, a rabbit who was irradiated during World War II and became a commando for the United States military. We're going to be having Volume 4 come out in the summer. Tim is drawing that right now, and that one is going to be Black Ops X Kamen America, our big crossover event that we've been building up to between Carly from Kamen America and USAGI, Black Ops, and the rest of those characters. It'll be a narrative bridge between Kamen America 3 and 4, as well as a direct sequel to Black Ops 3, which came out last year. I just finished writing that one. I think, end of December, and Tim's already, I think he's like 25 pages drawn out of 64. So he's plugging away at that. I'm currently writing Kamen America Volume 4, which is going to be released this winter. So we're keeping ourselves busy. We have all of our books coming out. We're always a book ahead, so that once we launch our pre-order campaign, the book's already ready to go, and it's a guarantee. So that's why we don't really call them crowdfunding campaigns, because you're not funding to have the book created because the book's already made. You're just pre-ordering a product that's all ready to go.
Cool. Very nice. Yeah, no, you guys keep getting bigger and bigger, and I guess I'll probably talk to you about this later in the interview, but it's one of these things where I wanted to kind of know how success has sort of changed your approach to these campaigns or pre-orders or whatever you want to call them at this point in time, because you keep getting bigger, but then I know that you guys are always trying to find new ways to add value and make the customer even happier. And like, it's like, how do you just keep topping yourself or whatever? But I guess we could answer that next. I get one thing that this is embarrassing for me. I know obviously that you have worked with Tim for a very long time, but I don't think I've ever heard how you guys actually first met. And I was wondering, like, what is the story about if it's like little Mark and little Tim, like on the playground, or if it was something like in college, or where did you guys meet and how did you kind of formed this relationship?
So as I'm in 2007, Tim and I were both working for this website company who was putting out a lot of blogs for media and pop culture reviews, and we both worked for him writing articles. And so we met through that channel, through basically how all the staff mingled together. And we started writing tandem reviews for the website, which is long gone now. I think it got shut down like way back in like 2010 or something. But that's how we got to know each other. We had similar opinions on movies and comics and stuff, and we both thought each other were funny. I thought Tim's art was really funny back then because he would draw comic strips, and he thought my reviews. We just started saying, like, we really want to work on a project together, and we had so many false start projects over from 2007 to between 2007 and 2016. We were constantly trying to work on projects together where I would write and he would draw, and they just weren't working out. I wrote scripts for children's books that he was going to draw, but it just didn't pan out. We had a few web comics that are also long gone that we tested out that just didn't gain any traction. And finally, in 2016, we were able to get something published together. That was a Thump, that political parody book that we did. And then from there, we started finally working on comics. I mean, before the first book that we published together, we were collaborating on things like T-shirts. So Tim worked for We Love Fine, who was one of the licensees for Marvel and Lucasfilm and Hasbro. And so Tim would collaborate with me to come up with ideas for T-shirts and merchandising artwork, usually just a lot of gag stuff for Transformers and Star Wars and X-Men and things like that. And from there, we turned that into doing variant covers for IDW books like Ninja Turtles and Transformers and such. And then from there, we finally started publishing our own books in 2016, turned those into comics the following year in 2017 with Black Hops and Wall Knights, which is another political parody book. And then from Black Hops and Wall Knight, we were able to start with Kamen America last year in 2020. And Kamen America has become our biggest success yet. So we're putting a lot of our energy and focus into that book, and it's been growing with each new installment that we've done. So we've known each other for a long time, and we had close to 10 years of just not being able to get any projects off the ground. And now just in the past 4.5 years, we've been having a lot of successful projects that are getting published and are getting seen by a lot of people and getting responded to very well. So so you cool. If anybody out there is listening, and you and your friends have been trying what seems like forever to get a project off the ground, whether it's a writing and art collaboration or what have you, just keep at it. Eventually, you're going to get one to stick.
Yeah, I mean, even in terms of writing, that kind of reminds me, like, over time, people are like, well, you've done these short stories that have just collected dust, or maybe you wrote screenplays or this or that, but it never went anywhere. And I always looked at it like, as long as I'm writing, I'm always learning something in the process. And even the things that I've written that they'll never see the light of day, I'll just probably eventually just throw them out or whatever. It's like during that whole writing process, I wouldn't have been able to ultimately do maybe Soulfinder Demons Match if I had not done all these short stories over the course of years that went nowhere. Like, you're still improving. And a lot of times it's like, you don't see it at the time how your struggles early on actually pave the way for your success later on down the road.
It's all practice, and that's the important thing. Is like Tim and I both knew a guy. We haven't talked to him in a lot of time. He wanted to be a writer first, then he wanted to be an artist second. But his thing was that he would have all these ideas for comics and things, and we'd ask him why he hasn't written them yet, and he said he was waiting for someone to pay him to write them. And like, well, no one's going to pay you to write something if you don't have any examples of your writing, if you don't have a bibliography out there, if you don't have a portfolio. No one's just going to come out of the blue and be your fairy godmother and just throw money at you to write something if you've never proven yourself. You're not going to be very good if you don't practice. And that's what all those unpublished works that people do, all those screenplays that they just write in private, short stories they write in private. I wrote a lot of juvenilia in high school and early college that that got deleted like 4 PCs ago. It doesn't exist anymore. But it was all practice. It was all learning experience. So when I finally did get something published, it's because it was finally up to a quality that was worthy of being published, that was able to go out there for people to read and have them not throw up as soon as they read it because it was so bad. But you have to, it's like everything else, you know, if you want to be a good artist, you have to draw every day and practice. If you want to be a good writer, you have to write every day and practice, even if no one else in the world sees it. It's basically your exercises. You got to do it. And eventually, you know, you're going to be good enough to get your stuff out there and get it to, you know, critically received well, or have someone who looks at it and says, this is good enough to be published. Okay. And then maybe they'll pay you.
Yeah, no, years ago, I ended up briefly writing for Newsbusters, and they actually used, I didn't have anything other than my blog posts as an example of my writing for them, really. And so it was like, I did that for free. And it was like, that helped me actually get a part-time gig at Newsbusters. So it's like, yeah, you need to be willing to do things for free. That's how much you have to love it. If it's your vocation, you're just going to naturally want to do it because it's in your bones, it's in your blood. So
yeah, if you enjoy it, you would do it whether anybody paid you or not, if you truly enjoyed it. So in a way, obviously, hell, I mean, I don't make a living writing. I still have my day job, but I'm not going to quit writing just because I don't earn enough to make a living. I write because I really love doing it. And that's why anybody who wants to be a writer should, well, first make sure that you love writing.
Yeah. And I mean, your kind of joy to me, of writing, it comes through in Kamen America. It comes through in Black Ops. And I guess I'll kind of jump a little bit to the creative process. So with whether it's Kamen America 3 or any of these books, you and Tim are a team. Who basically comes up with the plot, or how does that work with the two of you? Is it basically like you come up with an idea that you want and then you bounce ideas off of Tim? Is that you both sort of feel out the plot? How does that work? And then, like, how does it work does Tim on some level serve as an editor, or I don't know. These are sort of things where it's like, I know it's like a collaboration, but how much is you and Tim and all that sort of stuff?
So we're very collaborative, almost in like the Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird sort of way. I know that when people think of, you know, comics, they think of it in a very segmented assembly line process. It's like editor comes up with a germ of plot. Writer extrapolates that germ of plot into script. Artist draws the script given to them by the writer. And it's like none of them shall ever meet, you know.
Right.
It's just a one step-by-step process. Whereas like the way, you know, indie creators Blair did is that they worked so enmeshed where they came up with the ideas together, like at the same time. They edited each other. Like they worked even more in tandem than Tim and I do because they were both artists. So like Kevin Eastman would draw like page 3, Laird would draw page 4. Then they would ink each other so that their styles would match on the page. So, you know, the reader couldn't tell when the artist was changing because they'd be inking each other. They'd be editing each other along the way. And it was so enmeshed that you can't extract the Kevin Eastman element from the Peter Laird element because they were both working basically like Siamese twins. And Tim and I are very much like that in our collaborative process. We create the ideas together for our stories, for the character arcs, for the storylines. And then, so my first job as we're basically brainstorming all of our plot ideas is I take down all the notes of everything, his ideas, my ideas, whatever it is. You know, some of it's just stuff we'll throw at the wall, whatever. Nothing goes to waste. Then I try to assemble all those ideas into a linear plot summary. Then I run those past Tim, and then Tim gives me his notes, and then I refine it. I think for Kamen America 4, which I'm writing right now, it went through 3 summaries or 3 drafts of the summary until we got it down to something that we both thought told the best story of Kamen America 4. And then after we have a summary that we both like, my next step is I do what I call page breakdowns, where I take that summary and I segment it out into what's going to be on each page of the comic script. Kamen America comics are 52 pages each. So I break those down. I take that summary, and it's like, this is what happens on page 1. This is what happens on page 2, page 3, page 4. I summarize each page on 52 pages. And then I run that past Tim, and Tim gives me back his notes if he thinks like, well, can this be a 2-page spread, or can this fight scene's a little long, and this dramatic scene is a little short, or like this scene's too talky, and this scene is too cramped. Can you rearrange it, repace it a little bit, and then I'll do that. Usually that only goes through one draft of notes, and then once I have the page breakdowns done and we agreed on it, that's when I start the script. And honestly, once I get to the script, that's the easy part, because all the story is already agreed upon. It's all done. I know what's going to happen on every single page. I already know the character arcs, the story arcs. There's no more disagreements between me and Tim, because we've already agreed upon the summary and the page breakdowns and the flow of the story. So once I finish the script, it goes through one more draft. And that's usually a very minimal one, where Tim will just basically send me back some notes on dialogue, and I'll go and I'll change those. Very limited changes for a second draft, which is great, because it's much easier to redraft a summary than it is to redraft a whole script. That sucks. So that's one of the reasons why we're also able to work so fast and so efficiently, is that we get our major edits and drafts done in the summary process and not in the scripting process. So we get all of the hiccups out early. And then once the script is done, it's and the script is really fun to write. I do panel by panel breakdowns for each page. I describe what happens in each panel, and I also include the dialogue in there. I know that some writers don't do that. Tim's actually specially requested that I do that, because it helps him decide the details and the tone of each page and what the characters are doing. And it goes, we have it down to a well-oiled machine, so it just goes so well.
Random question here. I don't want to get into spoilers for the books, other than to say that they're good and check them out. So for Kamen America 2, for instance, this is just like a personal, since I have you here, I want to kind of, there's a scene where Carly, she hasn't checked her mail in a long time, and for various reasons, and she's busy, and she's got all these things going on. And there's a scene where she opens up a letter and it turns out that there's a woman from her past, and she's missed an opportunity to, we'll just say, do something important for this woman. Who came up with that scene, and how is that scene handled? I guess my underlying point is that so with a lot of books, there's not really this sort of, if it's just action, just things blowing up and going pow, like, you don't care about the characters. But you guys do a good job of adding these. That's like a poignant moment to me, that you're like, wow, if that were me in that situation. And it, like, it's super emotional, and that's what makes the action you actually care about the action, because you care about these more emotional moments. I don't know if you want to, I don't know how much you could even say or want to say about that particular scene, but.
So Kamen America 2, that one came out last autumn, I think. We're on Kamen America 3 right now. So, I mean, spoilers, I guess, for anybody who hasn't read Kamen America 2 yet. So, by the way, for the Kamen America 3 pre-orders on Kickstarter, if you use the add-on system, you can also order reprints of Kamen America 1 and 2, so you can get fully caught up. So if you haven't read Kamen America 2 yet, that's okay. I'll try not to spoil too much of it for you, but specifically for that scene, we understood that we needed substance. And that was something that we learned as early as Black Ops Volume 1, where we did have some emotional scenes in the very first volume of Black Ops. And we got a very good response back from those people telling us, like, your concept is goofy, but you humanize the characters. You give them emotional stakes, and that's what makes them feel real. That's what makes them feel like there's consequences to the things that they do and the things that happen to them. And that's really important to us, is that we want the characters to feel fully fleshed out, fully three-dimensional. When they cry, we want you to understand why they're crying. When they're angry, we want it to feel like it's justified. When they're scared, we want there to be tension and stakes to make it so that the reader feels the same emotion, that they have like a second-hand reaction to what's going on to those characters. So the bit with that lady, she had a small role in Kamen America 1, but it was something we had plotted out in advance. Yes, we plot out our individual issues page by page, but we also plot out our story arcs well in advance and our character arcs. So even the really small things that are in each volume of Kamen America and Black Ops, they're deliberately put in there as basically cogs in the machine that will have a larger reaction that kind of snowball into future volumes. And sometimes, if you're reading it in real time, you may not notice those things, like the letter that you mentioned that Carly reads in Kamen America 2. It was in the stack of mail in Kamen America 1. People just reading Kamen America 1 when it first came out probably wouldn't even noticed it. But after you read Kamen America 2 and you go back to reread Kamen America 1, you're going to see that letter that was in that pile of mail, and you realize, oh, they thought this out in advance. And that's one of the things that, as a writer, that helps you make sure your characters have substance, because there's, actions and consequences. The things they do basically snowball and start this Rube Goldberg machine of, chain reaction. Like everything else that happens in life, one thing leads to another, and it can have these profound effects. With that character, specifically, Tim was the one who originally suggested, I want to do this with this character. He initially wanted to do it in Kamen America Volume 1 to have that emotional scene. But what I suggested to him was like, well, we only have 52 pages, and it's really, really full right now. We just don't have room for this scene. I could try and fit it in, but I would have to shortchange it. And I think this is a really an emotional scene. In order for it to have weight, we need to pace it out into the second volume. And so that's what we did, is we spread it out into the second volume. We gave it the weight that it deserved. So instead of it just being like this really quick 2-page sequence that might have gotten a reaction from people, but not really a big one, but by giving it the attention that it needed for the substance of it to, ring clear in the hearts of the reader, we paced it out that way. And so we got a lot of positive responses to it.
I mean, I was I was not expecting that. Obviously, it's like I'm not a mind reader or whatever, but when I came to that, it just like hit me, and I was like, I would buy the book just for that scene. It made it worth the cover price and more to read a comic book with a scene that had that much emotional resonance to it. And so kudos to you for that. I guess one more question about writing in general. So Kamen America has a lot of characters in it, or maybe I'm just saying that because I could not juggle that many and do it well. And so you're seeing my own weaknesses here. But I guess my question is, how are you able to essentially do that and do that well? What pitfalls do you have to avoid? Because as you continue to expand this universe, it's just like more and more heroes and all these other characters, and it's like nobody's like, I don't look at anyone in these books, and I guess that's also a testament to you guys, like as a throwaway character or like just like some sort of background. I don't know, somebody's just whatever. It's like I feel like every time I meet a new character, like I got to pay attention to that guy. I got to pay attention to this girl. And I don't know. It's just there's a lot of moving pieces. And how do you deal with that?
For an ensemble cast, there is a lot of juggling. So I did a video on the Bunderdome probably a few months ago. I have that that comic script tips series that I do on the Bunderdome. And one of the videos I did is about, before you create a character, you need to consider the fundamental aspects of those characters. And once you know who your character is at their core, how they fit in with the theme of your book, that not only dictates your character's personality, how they react to situations, the kinds of things they will say, the kinds of things they will do, the kinds of things they won't do, which is honestly, I think, is more important to know what a character won't do than what a character will do. But once you have the fundamentals of your character down, it also decides the dynamics. So even if it's not the central character of your book, you'll see how that character responds and reacts and enhances your central character, how a supporting character will do that. So that way, no character feels wasted or like a third wheel or ancillary. No one feels like a Poochie who's just tacked on and adds nothing to the dynamic of the group. And when we were writing Kamen America 1, that was really we hadn't exactly considered. We knew we wanted to have a team of characters. We knew what Carly's individual theme was in that book, but then once we knew we had to add on these new characters, the question then was, what do they have to say in response to Carly? How do they enhance her, and how does she enhance them? How do they tessellate like a big puzzle piece? And so I came up with a guide of like, this is Carly's core fundamental as a character. This is what this character brings. This is what Misha brings to Carly. This is what Carly gets out of Misha. This is what Kimiko brings to Carly. This is what Kimiko brings to Misha. This is what Misha gets out of Kimiko. This is what Carly gets out of Kimiko. And it helps us write these characters so that their dynamics are all unique and no two characters have the same relationship, which is really important. That's something that I learned just from observations of certain media, because I used to review media a lot. I have that old Ninja Turtles site where I've reviewed thousands of Ninja Turtles comics. And one of the criteria I always had I could tell someone who was a good writer of Ninja Turtles from a bad writer is a good writer never has the same relationship between two characters. Everyone has a different dynamic. So Raphael doesn't treat Casey Jones the same way Donatello would treat Casey Jones, or Raph and Leonardo have a different relationship than Michelangelo and Leonardo, etc. And so that's an attitude that I always keep in mind when I'm doing an ensemble cast. That way nobody feels wasted. Everybody has a unique perspective, and everybody elicits a different reaction from each character. It'd be kind of like taking an ingredient out of a recipe and then changing the whole flavor. You need that one ingredient. And so everybody is a vital part of that formula.
Yeah, man, it's always good to read a comic and know that a writer's writer is on board, because there's a lot of comics where I don't believe that the individuals are thinking about the characters in the way that you and Tim are thinking about the characters. That's probably the nicest way I could put it.
Yeah. So. I mean, so writing is a different discipline from art. In a lot of ways, I envy artists because they get to put on the page what I can only have in my head. But the other side of the coin is someone can be a very good artist, but if they've never practiced writing, then they aren't going to be a good writer. You can be a very good artist, but if you've never practiced writing a script, you don't know the fundamentals of script and storytelling and pacing and character dynamics, then your book could look very pretty, but it could end up reading very shallow. And right. If you go back in time, just read the first year of Image books like Shadowhawk, Spawn, Savage Dragon, whatever it was, Youngblood, that was it. Read those first years, because Image was originally founded exclusively for artists, because Todd McFarlane and Silvestri and Jim Lee and all them, they didn't like writers. They felt that Marvel and DC were putting too much emphasis on writers and shafting the artists. So they initially created Image Comics as a place just for artists to create their artist-owned books. And they all stunk. They all looked beautiful, right. But they were all really bad. And within a year, every one of those titles, with the exception of Savage Dragon, I'll give Larson credit, every single one of those books hired a writer to write them. Todd McFarlane, he was doing a revolving door of celebrity writers, the exact kind of writers that he complained about getting too much attention over at Marvel and DC and Vertigo. He hired Alan Moore, he hired Frank Miller, he hired I can't recall his name of the thing, but he hired Neil Gaiman. He hired a whole bunch of celebrity comic writers on Spawn within a year, because Spawn under his writing just stunk. And yeah, Jim Lee was hiring writers for Wildcats, like Alan Moore again. Larson, he never hired a writer for Savage Dragon. He stuck to his guns. That's because he's got a pathological hatred of writers. I think it's
Yeah,
a bit more
I was gonna say.
deranged than anything else.
No, so some of the artists, I've said before, is just one of those things where it's like they think because they know how to type and speak
Mhm.
English that that's
Yeah.
all you really need to know to be a writer, and it's like it's kind of insulting, dude. But okay, whatever.
It is, and Tim's actually he's a good writer. I mean, he wrote those articles over at the website company we worked for. So I mean, he does have experience in writing. I don't think he's ever written necessarily a script, but he's seen the way that I write scripts. In the early collaborative process, he was the one who's like, "Well, Mark, since you're writing these scripts for me to draw, could you please write them this way because it would help me as an artist?" And I think that's also something really important as a writer. If you when you're collaborating with your artist, is that you should tailor your script to suit the strengths of your and the preferences of the artist you're working with, so that you get the most out of them, so that they can read your script the most intuitively, and it makes the job easier. The easier you can make the job for them, the faster they can draw it, the better they can draw it.
Right.
So you don't. There's this weird attitude of writers versus artists in a lot of the mainstream comic scene. Where they're combative with each other. They don't like collaborating. They don't like working with each other. They don't even like talking to each other. And it's so strange to me because, I've worked with Tim and we're friends, and we've never had like this big spat where like we disagree on a plot point or a character point, and then neither of us want to ever talk to each other again. We just we set our egos aside, and we consider each other's edits. So like when I send the script to him, he sends me back his notes, and then so I apply his notes. I think a few times I've disagreed with his notes, and I've basically written why I disagree. I was on Black Ops 3, where he had a suggestion about revealing something I think earlier, and so I disagreed. It's like, I think we should reveal this later in the book so it keeps it as a surprise. And he ended up saying, okay, well, Mark, I trust you as the writer. We'll do it that way. When Tim finishes drawing the book and lettering it, he sends it back to me for final edits. And basically, I rarely have edits for his art unless there's like an actual error on the page. Like USAGI has red and white stars on his hind legs, and I think in one panel he accidentally had the colors reversed, like the red was on the wrong side, and I'll do stuff like that. But mostly the edits that I have are for the lettering. I'll if there's a typo, I'll point that out. A lot of the times it just comes down to speech bubble placement for readability purposes. That's usually the edits that I suggest in the lettering. And Tim never goes like, "Oh my God, Mark, this lettering is my life. How dare you? I'm never speaking to you again." We never get into that because we both want the book to be as good as it possibly can. So we work together on it from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think Tim, on some level, he's a little bit of a statistical outlier among artists because his medical background and what he does, he has a very analytical mind. And so, like, I almost feel like he's just a very thoughtful sort of individual. Not that other artists aren't thoughtful, but I don't know. It's like I almost feel like his mind would naturally have him turning over these characters and looking at them from different angles naturally, which would lend itself to skills that a good writer also possesses as well. So,
yeah, and I mean, I think it's because it's not a case where he's drawing somebody else's intellectual property. He's not a hired hand. These are characters he co-created. These are characters he co-developed. He has just as much skin in the game as the writer to make these characters and the story as good as possible. So exactly, yeah, he has much more of an intimate responsibility to the intellectual property and the story than someone who's farmed out to draw a comic, essentially.
Definitely. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you all day, but so I want to kind of tie it all together. I know you kind of talked about the books coming down the pike for 2021. I guess my question for you would be, what is, in addition to what you got going on this year, how far in advance do you guys have you planned, and what's your, I don't know. You could go wherever you want with it, but in terms of long-term plans, again, you keep growing this campaign. You still have 17 days to go on Kickstarter. You haven't done your usual Indiegogo thing. It's already at $72,000 with 1,700 backers. So I don't know. It seems like the sky's the limit. I don't want to put too much pressure on you guys, but what are your plans if you just keep continuing to I don't know. You're not really plateauing yet.
Well, that's the thing is that, there's no such thing as infinite growth. Eventually, there will be a plateau, preferably not a bubble burst or anything. But we are still growing. More eyes are getting on our books. More people are reading them and enjoying them, and coming back for more and bringing their friends. We appreciate anybody who shares our campaigns, who goes on social media and tells people about them. The word of mouth is how we've been able to grow, because we don't have, like, the Bunderdome has, I think, 850 followers. It's a very small channel, so we don't have a YouTube presence. I think combined on Twitter, I think combined we might have 10,000 followers, something like that. But how many of those are bots? How many of those are real followers? I don't know. We don't have a huge social media presence, so it's really the word of mouth that gets people to be aware of our books. And it's been a long haul in growing our two IPs, Black Ops and Kamen America. We started crowdfunding in 2017, and our first few campaigns were very small, very modest, but we've done a little bit better each time. I think when we first started, we were making our first campaign made $10,000, and now with Kamen America 2, once we did the Kickstarter and the Indiegogo last call together, Kamen America 2 earned over $100,000. So, but that took 3 years to get from $10,000 to $100,000, and I think altogether we've done like 9 or 10 separate campaigns over the course of 4 years. So it has been a lot of work and a long time of doing that work, but you've got to persevere. You've got to stay consistent. And speaking of consistency, for the future, our schedule is going to be 3 books a year, 2 Kamen Americas and 1 Black Ops. We're going to have a Kamen America installment available at the start of the year in January. Then we're going to have a Black Ops installment in the summer, and then another Kamen America installment in the winter. Every 3 Black Ops installments we're going to collect into an omnibus collection. So the first 3 volumes of Black Ops are already collected in an omnibus. And for Kamen America, every 4 volumes, we're going to do an omnibus collection. So at the end of this year, after Kamen America 4 comes out, we'll have our very first Kamen America omnibus. So that's our printing schedule for the foreseeable future. Is going to be 3 books a year, 2 Kamens, 1 Black Ops. As far as storytelling goes, we've already got Black Ops plotted out, because we're only going to do 1 volume a year, so each volume has to count and have a lot of story in it. So that's why the Black Ops volumes are a little bit longer. We've got several arcs planned out for Black Ops. For Kamen America, we're doing the anime manga thing of calling our story arcs sagas. So the first saga will be ending with volume 4. And then we've already got the second saga planned out, and we've got a lot of the third saga already being contemplated and planned out as well. And we're going to have sagas beyond that. So we've got years and years and years of storytelling planned, and we hope that everybody sticks with us through them.
Cool, man. Well, I'm just really happy to see your success. You mentioned, your very first campaigns were 10,000 or 12,000, or I can't remember what I saw way back in the day, but to see it go from this sort of small these campaign to over 100,000 plus is just pretty cool. I'll let you go for now, but you are always welcome back here, and I love hearing your thoughts on writing. I'm biased. I am a writer, but I'm looking forward to all the different omnibus issues that come out and all that sort of stuff. So I guess if you want to take us away, if there's any final parting thoughts, then go for that, and then we'll just see you again, hopefully, I don't know, in a couple months or
Sure.
maybe next year or whatever.
Well, I mean, I just want to say that I can't wait for Soul Finder 2 Black Tide, because you sent me your early draft script of that, and it sounded really exciting. And I know you got Matt Weldon drawing it, and he's an incredible artist. He's done a lot of work for us, like Black Ops 2. So I know that Black Tide is going to be great. I can't wait to see it. So when's that coming out?
Well, it's completely done. I just got the proofs last week from API, and I gave them my feedback on a couple things, some issues. So long story short, I'm having a hardcover edition, and there's things that I wanted, and for whatever reason, that's caused some delays. But as far as I know, everything's good to go. They have the green light to print it as soon as possible, and it's really just where it is in their little queue to print, because I'm just like, yeah, okay, it's good to go as long as so like with the proofs, I don't think they would mind me saying this, but there was like a couple pages missing in the hardcover, and I was like, where you're missing a couple pages here. And then, you know, so they were like, ooh, I know what happened or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, everything else looks fine as long as I don't want you to print a book and have like 2 pages missing or whatever. Like that would be bad.
That's why they send you the proofs. We've had not just API, but one of our other publishers. It happens. They sent us a proof. Black Ops 2. That was the one that had the it was a reversible book where you would get to the middle, then you'd flip it over and read it the other direction. We had a few copies come in from the publisher where they thought that was an error, so they reflipped everything on the other side of the book, and we had to like, no, that wasn't an error. You've got to go back and you got to put it the way we had it. And like, oh, I'm sorry, we thought we were helping. So yeah, like that's just a thing that printers do. That's why they send you the proofs.
Yeah, so that was basically the final thing, and then there was like a little. They wanted, actually, this will be I'm giving the inside scoop away, behind the scenes stuff. So API really liked the gold foil that you guys used for the Walmart gold standard. And so the guy I've been dealing with, he was just like, you got to use that on Soul Finder. And I was like, you know, Trump's like a business tycoon. He's got the Trump Towers. He's really into like that kind of gold, but like these are humble priests. And I kind of liked the gold that was on the first one. I was like, I wouldn't mind bronze maybe, but I don't want Trump gold for like humble priests or something. They're like, no, man, come on, it's awesome. And I was like, no, so we were just having this like back and forth debate. And then I was like, I know you hate the bronze, but like bronze, baby, make it the bronze. Like, you know, George Costanza's dad screaming or whatever. And it's like, so that was like my last interaction, was just saying, go with the bronze, baby. So hopefully everything will be good to go. I got to check with them on Monday. So
cool. I can't wait for that one.
Cool, man. Well, again, thanks for stopping by. Say hi to Tim for me. I know he's incredibly busy. One of these days, I'd like to have him back on as well to talk about art, maybe the both of you. Again, you're always welcome, and I really appreciate it, man.
It was great to be on, man. Thanks.
Cool. I'll talk to you later.